Agriculture Commission for Texas. He's elect right now. We have one more election to get through. But still has exciting plans for what to do with that Agriculture Commission position. And we look forward to hearing about that and how the campaign's gone and whatever else you want to share with us. So please welcome Sid Miller.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back here with so many patriots, and you are a patriot. God bless you for the work you've done. I couldn't start unless I started out thanking everyone in this room for all your hard work. You were my campaign. I got in the race late. We weren't able to raise much money, so basically we worked on getting endorsements and getting the grassroots engaged, and boy, did y'all ever engage. I never made it out to El Paso, but I know that y'all sent your voter guides out there, and I carried El Paso overwhelmingly. So I give you complete credit for that. So thank you for all your hard work and for all the other good candidates that y'all supported in the primary and in the runoff. I really say that sincerely from the bottom of my heart, because you're the ones that got me this far, and I hope not to disappoint you. I think we're have the roughest part behind us, and not saying that I'm cruising through November. I'm running like I'm 20 points behind. Glad to make a 10-hour round trip down here, so to be with y'all and get you caught up on the campaign. I'm trying not to rehash. So many people have heard me in here. I try not to rehash anything. Many of you would consider yourself living in an urban area, and you might ask yourself, why should we be concerned about who the Agriculture Commissioner is and how he addresses the needs of the farmer? Just let me tell you why you should be interested in who your next Commissioner of Agriculture is. There's not a wife or a mother or a grandmother in this room that doesn't want the most safest, most affordable, most abundant, most reliable food for her family that she can possibly have. That's the big part of what the Texas Agriculture Department does. So you can be assured when you go to the grocery store and you buy a gallon of organic milk for your family, that it has no antibiotics in it, no hormones. And you buy a dozen eggs that it doesn't have any salmonella or E. coli. But beyond that, the Ag Department is responsible for a lot of other things that affect our lives. When you pull up to the fuel pump and you buy 10 gallons of gas, you can be assured the Texas Department of Agriculture has been there, Weights and Measures Department, and that you're going to get exactly 10 gallons of gas. If you buy produce at the grocery store, if you weigh semis that run up and down our nation's highways, or if you buy and sell gold, you can be assured that you get an ounce of gold in Texas when you pay for an ounce of gold. So they do all of those things. The Texas Department of Agriculture is in charge of dispersing federal programs in rural health care. So we work with all the hospitals and hospital districts to bring rural health care to rural parts of Texas. Also broadband. You wouldn't think the Texas Department of Agriculture has anything to do with broadband, but the Texas Department of Agriculture is responsible for distributing and implementing broadband across the state. So they do a lot of things and touch a lot of people's lives in a lot of different ways. So I just wanted to share that with you in case you wondered how the Texas Agriculture Department affects your life. Of course, do all the obvious things like promoting Texas agricultural products, bringing industry to Texas, promoting different segments of the industry, whether it be cotton industry or the beef industry or aquaculture or anything like that is a responsibility. And then there's also young farmer programs to keep people involved, returning to the family farm. Only 2% of this nation is actually involved in production agriculture, even though 1 in 7 jobs is indirectly related to it. So there's some things that I'd like to do, should I be fortunate enough to be your next Texas Agriculture Commissioner. One of my opponents, his whole campaign was run on legalizing marijuana and growing hemp and marijuana. That's not my deal. I'm not into that. I am for expanding agricultural opportunity in the state. There's a lot of untapped areas in the state that we are not doing that we could actually be one of the leaders in. We bring in 98% of our cut flowers into this state. There's no reason we couldn't be doing that here. That's a low-cost startup operation for somebody that wants to get involved in agriculture with minimal investment. How many of you like to eat catfish on Friday? I do. We import about 80% of our catfish, most of it from Vietnam. There's no reason we can't grow that right here in Texas. So, it'd be a much better product. 1 in 10 homes in Texas has an aquarium. I haven't found anybody that's growing tropical fish in this state either. That could almost be done in somebody's garage. So easy to get started in agriculture. We import about 80% of our horticulture goods. And it's a big, huge industry. California, Louisiana, Florida, plenty of room for expansion. You can grow a lot of plants on less than an acre of ground in Texas with minimal investment. So a lot of these things I'd like to do, expand on. I'd like to take some of the jobs that are in those high-rise office buildings, the Texas Department of Agriculture in Austin, move them back out in the countryside so those people have to live and work, go to school, go to Sunday school with the people they serve so they can actually see what it's like and relate to the people there. There's nothing more frustrating to me as a farmer and rancher to get a hold of a bureaucrat branding, some high-rise building wearing cutoffs and slippers, and I have to try to tell them, about my farming operation.
Bunch of those in Austin.
Yes, sir. We're going to put those jobs, as many as we can, back out in the countryside. We've historically, Ag Commission kind of zeroed in on one area. Todd Staples, Homeland Security, that was his big deal. I get that. I was chairman of Homeland Security and Public Safety in the House. I already have those relationships with the border sheriffs and the landowners down there. We won't do any less. That's not going to be my number one focus. Susan Combs was nutrition, childhood nutrition, childhood obesity, and those are all great programs, and we'll continue to do that. By the way, I left out that's the biggest part of the Ag Department is nutrition. It's a $2 billion pass-through from the USDA. Every mother and every father wants to make sure that their child has the most nutritious food possible when they attend our public schools. So all the lunch programs, free breakfast program, all comes through the Texas Department of Agriculture, including adult feeding programs like Meals on Wheels and other organizations like that. But my number one focus is going to be water. We're at a critical stage in this state. For many years we watered ourselves with windmills. We were sparsely populated. Those days are gone. We're going to pass 26 million people in this state. We have over 1,000 new Texans every day. Water resources are becoming limited. We're in a 4-year drought. A lot of our farmers not far from here, the rice farmers haven't had any water, haven't been able to put a crop in for 4 years. There's some things that the legislature did that I didn't particularly agree with. One was they took the Water Development Board, 5 members down to 3 members appointed by the governor, and none of them represent rural Texas or agriculture or the farmers and ranchers. That bothers me. And the reason that bothers me is the voters approved taking $2 billion out of the rainy day fund to pay for these water projects. And if you remember the constitutional election prior to that, voters approved $6 billion in bonds. So there's $8 billion sitting there in Austin to address the water needs of our state. 3 men have oversight over that. And no one's there to hold them accountable. And I intend to be the one that steps in the gap and stands up for Texans, stands up for taxpayers, and hold those 3 men accountable as how they distribute that money. My greatest fear is that $8 billion will be distributed on a political basis and not on an as-needed basis. We actually have towns in West Texas that have no water and no backup. They're having to haul water in. Lake Meredith that feeds Amarillo is dry. They can't even pump out. 2 weeks ago, Wichita Falls became the first city in the nation to start drinking their toilet water. So, when you say, when you go to Mexico, don't drink the water, when you go to Wichita Falls, So, anyway, that's kind of where I intend to focus on. And, we've had great success Every agriculture group has endorsed our campaign, none for the pump, well, exception of one. I didn't get the Farm Bureau endorsement. We have a little disagreement. I don't agree with ethanol subsidies. Just plain and simple to me, I just think it's inherently wrong to take good corn whiskey and pour it in fuel. There's something not American about that. But that's kind of where we are in the campaign. Like I said, we're running like we're 20 points behind and still campaigning. And I think two reasons. That's just kind of my makeup. I'm very competitive. And more importantly, I think the voters deserve it. I think they deserve to see the candidates out in front of them, come to the town hall, and answer any questions. And I'll be glad to do that right now. Yes.
What about hydroponic and aquaponic farming? What do you think about that in the future, given our water situation?
There's a place for that. People ask me questions like this all the time. What about organic farming and GMOs? The Agriculture Commissioner, as I view it, it's not my job to pick winners and losers. It's my job to make winners out of everybody. So if you're interested in going into hydroponics, I'm going to give you every opportunity to be successful I can, and promote your products, your industry that I can. A traditional farmer that wants to farm 640 hours, I'm going to do the very best I can to promote his cotton, his corn, his sorghum, whatever. So that's how I view the position. I'm to promote agriculture, all aspects of it. And there's room for hydroponics, organics, grass-fed beef, corn-fed beef. It's all good. We can sell it all. It's all good product, and it all has its place in the market. Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that in Texas, people that do lawn maintenance and whatnot are supposed to have a license. I'm not sure what it is, and also the same thing for tree trimming. They need to be a license or something like that. And yet, probably 99.9% of what I see running around don't. I'd like to know if they do need licenses, fine. If they do, why is that not important?
Texas Department of Agriculture also does licensing. One of the industries is the floral and nursery industry, and you have to get a certificate for that. The department comes out and inspects your property, inspects your plants, make sure they're not diseased, that you're not shipping plants that are infested with fire ants and termites, things like that. Those done periodically a couple of times a year. I do own a wholesale nursery, so the TDA comes out and then inspects my property and my plants and make sure that that's all on the up and up. On the tree trimming, there's not a state certification for tree trimmers. Basically, anybody can trim a tree. There is a National Arborist Association where they are certified through that. So if you want to get a certified tree trimmer, you can do that. But there's not one required by the state. Yes, sir.
I wonder what's the chance, up in Arkansas, usually there's places where you can buy gasoline that doesn't have any ethanol in it. What's the chances of getting ethanol out of gasoline? Because corn's for eating and petroleum is for gasoline.
You can buy gasoline in this state because it's ethanol free. A lot of it is.
Oh.
It's not mandated that all of it has ethanol in it.
So what about just getting it out of it?
The pumps will say on there if it's 15% ethanol or 5% ethanol,
Right.
E85, whatever.
So why do we even have ethanol anyway? We got plenty of petroleum. It just makes the cost of feed go up everywhere in the world.
My personal opinion, there's a place for ethanol. It is a good backup. I think we're making it from the wrong product. I don't think we should be making it from a food source. You can make that from switchgrass, wheat stubble, a lot of other things that don't compete. 25% of our nation's corn production is now going to ethanol. So that's less for people to eat, for cattle and pigs and chickens and everything else that we grow out. So it drives up the cost of feed. So, I think the reason, y'all don't think I'm out there on this, but the reason that ethanol is caught on and it's stayed hooked is the Iowa caucuses, straw poll, in my opinion. I went up there and campaigned for Rick Perry. I talked to 700 people in Lamar's, Iowa. Only thing they wanted to know is that Rick Perry supported ethanol subsidies, corn subsidies. I said, well, no, he doesn't. He lost. Two people supported them. They came in first and second. Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. They came in first and second. Yes.
Sid, what do you think the future looks like for the rice farmers with the water issues on North Colorado and just, knowing that they've had a lot of inconsistencies there?
Well, people know that water's my deal, and they, when people ask me what's the greatest threat facing the Texas farmer and rancher, they expect me to talk about water. We're in a 4-year drought, and those rice farmers are going to be fine as soon as God blesses us with some rain, and He will, and He always has, and I believe that will solve a lot of our problems. But the greater threat is overreaching federal government, whether it be the EPA or the BLM trying to seize 90,000 acres up on the Red River and not compensate our landowners up there. That's patented land, it's deeded, they have title to it, they've been paying property taxes on it. The EPA, where they're trying to expand their reach on the Clean Waters Act, even though the Supreme Court ruled in 2006, they have no more claims than waters in oceans, rivers, streams, and lakes. They're trying to, by rule, claim the water anywhere it runs, whether it's down a cow trail or a dry creek bed or a bar ditch. By the way, I would encourage you, each and every one of you, to go to the EPA's website. The comment period has been extended. It was to expire this month. It's extended into October now. Voice your opposition to that. If you want to shut down production agriculture across the nation and the oil and gas industry, you just give that much power to the EPA. They're also trying to shut us down by, with the Endangered Species Act. There's 200 species proposed to be added in Texas to that act. Just recently, they were semi-successful in getting the lesser prairie chicken added to not the endangered list, but the threatened list. Now farmers and ranchers, oil and gas drillers have to do a trade-out. It's very costly to do that. It's hampering production. It's hampering business as we know it. More regulation, more hurdles that we have to jump through. So those are some things that really threaten our farmers and ranchers. Hopefully our rice farmers will get some water down. They own that water, except it's just not there. And you've been up there and seen those highland lakes. They're just basically dry. I mean, they're in bad shape. And hopefully they'll fill up. We'll get back to rolling again. Just to address something on the border, I said I've chaired that Homeland Security, and I've been down there. We put the boats back on the river. We put the helicopters down there. As I look at the thing, there's several things that need to happen. Number one, Rick Perry did the right thing when he called out the 1,000 National Guard troops.
Yeah.
That's probably about a $400 million ticket. If that's cheaper than allowing those people to stay here, we'll spend 10 times that. If we don't address the problem and just turn our eyes away from it.
Without being critical, why did it take so long to do this?
I asked Rick Perry to do that about 6 months ago. I've also asked him, you might want to study this, to invoke the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. If you look at that, that's the part where it says that only the federal government has the right to defend the shores, declare war, attack our enemies. And the very last sentence of it says, unless a state is invaded or attacked. I would certainly consider this an invasion, and that would give us all equal power of the federal government to do whatever we need to do to arrest those people. We can't do it as a state. If he would invoke Article 1, Section 10, we could do that. You may want to encourage our governor to it's never been used in our nation's history, but it could be and should be. We need to repeal and make the easy path to asylum in this state tough and very strict and hard to adhere to. Make it, at the very minimum, make it exactly like we make it for Canada and Mexico. Number 3, we need to take the foreign aid that we're sending to these 4 or 5 South American countries and cut it off, maybe except the drug money, and that money, cut that money off, it's about $400 million, and that needs to go to the border to expedite the processing of the illegals that are here. And the children aren't the big problem. That's less than 20% that are coming through them. While the Border Patrol and everybody's down there on the very tip of Texas processing those, the other 1,000 miles of Texas border is basically wide open. So the drug cartels, the drugs, the terrorists are all just pouring through. And that's why hopefully Rick Perry will scatter those 1,000 National Guard troops. And we beefed up our DPS to 1,000 down there. It was 250 and we're up to 1,000. The 4th thing that needs to happen, and you may not be aware of this, our federal agents, our Border Patrol, are not allowed to patrol or to enter federal properties. They can't even go, how crazy is that? In other words, they can't go into Big Bend National Park or any part of those federal lands, forest in New Mexico, up through Arizona. You know, there's somebody that wants to look at the rocks and listen to the birds. I guess they're afraid of, you know, we won't have an environment to enjoy if we don't secure our border. We've got to do that. So that ban needs to be lifted because it makes for a very porous border when you can't even control our own federal lands, our own federal agents. Yes?
I was wondering, why is it that they had special tuition rates for illegal aliens? And also, they allow them to go to hospitals and get free medical treatment. And then they don't, you know, that should have never happened to ever. Yet that encouraged more of them to come. And yet that was done in the past. The legislature allowed it and the governor signed it before.
I guess I'm partly to blame for that. And here's how it actually went down. No one's ever told the real story of what happened. I had a bill in the House, Brandon may remember it, and it was to give in-state tuition for members of the military and their families, even though they weren't legal residents here. We want to take care of our military, our soldiers, their wives, their kids, so they don't have a choice of staying here, right? So we want to make, if they want to go to college here, let them pay in-state tuition, it's the least we can do. So I brought this bill to the floor. And so to change it, the law said you had to be a resident of Texas 3 years, you had to attend our public schools, and what was the third thing? There's another one? It's been so long I forgot. I guess that was it. You had to live here for 3 years, you had to attend our public schools. So what we were going to do is just amend that, or be a member of the United States military, or a member of the United States military family. We got that to the floor, and somebody said, hey, this means that if an illegal alien has been living here for 3 years and been going to our public schools, we give them in-state tuition. Somebody said, well, never thought of that. I guess we do. We've been doing it forever. It wasn't a new thing. So there's several amendments came up, and basically the bill got amended to say you have to be living in Texas for 3 years, attend our public schools, and the way it ended up on the pathway to citizenship. You have to at least apply for citizenship on the pathway to it. The one amendment on being a U.S. citizen got voted down, but that one got on. So that's what we ended up with, and that's how it was there. It's always been there. It wasn't something new. It was there long before Rick Perry was ever governor. So that's how it ended up.
That's why we get more of them now.
Exactly. One of the many reasons, not the only reason.
Yeah.
One of many. Yes, sir.
You can't join the military if you're not a single citizen in the United States.
I'm not sure about that. I think you
I
can.
used to be a recruiter, and I can tell you, a guy came to me that was here illegally, and I asked him if he had a green card, and he said no. And I said, no, you can't.
Right.
I called
If he was here illegally, probably would. But now, if he had been a legal resident, not a citizen, I think he could have.
Oh. Well,
I
if
believe
he
that's
has,
right.
if he has a green card, then he would be legally able.
That's correct.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a
Because
citizen.
I called the, Texas DPS and reported this guy, gave him his address and his phone number and everything. I don't think it was DPS, it was.
Yeah, DPS, it
I
wouldn't be their
was told-
jurisdiction.
It was immigration, I think.
Immigration.
I was told, the guy told me, and these words, Mr. Owen, we have X number of people to patrol between I-35 east. And we can't, I said, if you can't do the job you're hired to do, then get the hell out of the job. You know?
They're well, in his defense, they're way understaffed. They just can't get to it.
Well, you know,
Just gonna get maybe 10% of it.
it's just amazing that they can take something like that.
Yes, sir.
I was born and raised right here in Houston. Okay? Grew up here, I used to run the fields, run the streams, and all that stuff. The older I get, the less I see natural resources like water. It's a touchy subject to me. I see it disappearing, and yet I see our governor and everybody else saying, y'all come, move to Texas. Move to Texas. We need more cars on the road. We need more people drinking water. You know, explain that to me. I'm not understanding. And I'm not a greedy guy. I mean, you know,
Well, you know, there's a good argument to your side of the argument, you know. Some say we need to build a fence on the border, but the Oklahoma border. We, and on to address your part about the water, let me just assure you, the state has a very good long-range water plan. It's a 50-year plan. Personally, I think it's probably overdone, which is not bad. I mean, you want to be overdone, it's better than being underdone. It costs $53 million to do it. We divided our state up in 16 regions. Those have people serving on it. They're putting in their wish list for these water projects. And by the way, this $8 billion, if we do it right, is plenty to build $53 billion worth of projects. The way you do that, you use it as a force multiplier. You use it to buy down the interest rate. You use it to guarantee loans. You use it to, however you can enhance it, and these projects are built and then they pay the money back. It's all paid back. So it will perpetually build on itself. All the surface water in the state of Texas is owned by the state of Texas. Always has been. That's not new. That is managed by river authorities, whether it be the Brazos River Authority, the Trinity River Authority, the Lower Colorado River Authority, whatever. And they manage all that, and they say who gets what and how much of it. The problem is we're out of surface water, or near out of surface water. The groundwater, we're the last of the western states, west of Mississippi, to still live under the rule of capture. Most of the states, water rights are like our mineral rights. You know, they're traded and sold, and they don't necessarily, but the surface owner in Texas owns the water under his property. And we need to make sure we preserve that, because it is a private property right. It comes with your owning of the surface right. We've come to a point in Texas where we kind of have to pick the lesser of two evils. The state is going to regulate that groundwater, or you can take the lesser of the two evils and vote yourself in a groundwater management district and elect the local board members to manage that groundwater. And that is my preference. My first preference is not to have any regulation whatsoever. But at this point, we're going to have to manage that groundwater. So doing it at a local level is the preferred way. And we have probably over half the state now covered by groundwater conservation districts. Anything else? Yes.
I'm a regular one. We need to be a little bit more careful with this water here and recycle water in these areas in a lot of situations, parks and things like that. They make it now to be able to purpose. So recycle water, if you're doing that, your waste or whatever, we need these people.
We do, and you know, just to be honest with you, we all basically drink, if you drink city water, drink recycled water, toilet water, because it goes to a water treatment plant, and down in the creek that runs into the river, that runs into your lake, and it's pumping, cleaning. And it's just a little diluted, a little more that way.
People wonder why the rates are so high. The sewage treatment plants are very well protected.
Very expensive to run.
They're very expensive, yes.
Some things we could do to enhance the water that we have. Some of our largest cities lose, by the time they receive their water to their delivery to the customer, losing 30%. That's an infrastructure problem. That's relatively cheap and easy and quick to fix compared to building 11 reservoirs around the state with transmission pipelines going across the state. One of the things that I talked about that no other state officials talk about is rainwater catching or rainwater harvesting. We have a huge problem. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in stormwater drainage in our cities, and we don't have to. You can gutter these big commercial buildings like this one, like distribution centers like Walmart or Target has, or even a house. It will work on our house. In West Texas, was settled with rainwater harvesting. People had cisterns, and that's all the water they had. But you can capture that water, use it for storage, you can use it for manufacturing, you can use it to water the lawn or landscape. You can put a charcoal filter on it and use it for drinking water. No fluorine, no chlorine. It's great. I've been doing this long enough. That's my signal. I need to shut it. So, thank y'all, and God bless you.